Nobody tells you this, but one day you will wake up and feel a strange emptiness inside you. Not because you failed, but because you finally got everything you once wanted and still feel incomplete. It doesn't happen with noise or chaos. It comes silently, like a slow realization creeping into your thoughts, making everything you once believed feel uncertain. Ayaan experienced this moment on an ordinary night. There was nothing special about it. The same room, the same walls, the same life he had worked so hard to build. Yet something inside him felt different, almost broken in a way he couldn't explain. All his life, he had followed the path that was laid out for him. Study hard, stay disciplined, achieve success, and happiness will come. He believed it without questioning, just like everyone else around him. And to be fair, it worked, at least on the surface. He had a stable job. People respected him. His life looked sorted from the outside. But deep inside, there was a growing silence that no achievement could fill. Every milestone that once felt exciting now felt temporary, fading faster than before, leaving behind an emptiness that grew heavier each time. First, he tried to ignore it. He convinced himself that maybe he was just tired, maybe he needed rest, maybe this was just a phase. But the truth was far more uncomfortable. The problem wasn't his situation. It was the belief system he had built his entire life on. He had spent years chasing a version of happiness that was never clearly defined, never deeply understood, just blindly accepted. And now that he had reached it, he realized something terrifying. It wasn't enough. That night, as he sat alone with his thoughts, a question entered his mind that refused to leave. It wasn't loud, but it was powerful enough to shake everything he believed in. What if I've been living someone else's idea of life? That single thought created a crack in his reality. For the first time, he wasn't distracted by goals, expectations, or routines. He was forced to face himself without noise, without direction, without certainty. And that is the truth nobody tells you. Life is not just about reaching somewhere. It's about understanding why you are going there in the first place. Because if you don't question it, you might spend your entire life climbing a ladder, only to realize at the end, it was leaning against the wrong wall. The question didn't leave Ayaan's mind the next morning. In fact, it followed him everywhere, to his work, into his conversations, even into the smallest moments of his daily routine. Everything that once felt normal now felt strangely distant, as if he was watching his own life from the outside. The same job that once gave him pride now felt repetitive and hollow. The same people he laughed with now sounded like echoes in a room that no longer felt real. Nothing had changed, and yet, everything had. He began to notice something he had never paid attention to before. How most people around him were also running, constantly chasing something, yet rarely stopping to ask why. They were busy, stressed, distracted, but never truly present. It was as if everyone was part of a race without knowing the finish line. And for the first time, Ayaan felt afraid, not of failure, but of living an entire life unconsciously, just moving from one goal to another without ever feeling fulfilled. Days turned into weeks, and the discomfort inside him grew stronger. It wasn't the kind of pain that could be fixed with rest or entertainment. It was deeper than that, a quiet dissatisfaction that refused to be ignored. He tried to go back to his old mindset, to focus on goals and achievements like before, but something had shifted inside him. The illusion had cracked, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see life the same way again. One evening, while walking alone, he stopped and watched people passing by, each one carrying their own worries, their own dreams, their own invisible struggles. And suddenly, a realization hit him. Maybe the problem wasn't life itself. Maybe the problem was how he had been taught to live it. He had been trained to chase outcomes, but never to understand himself. He knew how to achieve, but not how to feel complete. That moment didn't give him answers. It gave him something more dangerous, awareness. Because once you become aware of the truth, you can no longer hide behind distractions. You start seeing things clearly, and clarity can be uncomfortable. It forces you to question everything, your choices, your goals, even your identity. And Ayaan realized that the life he was living might not be wrong, but it wasn't truly his either. That's when he understood something most people never realize. The hardest part of life isn't building something. It's questioning whether what you've built is even worth holding on to. Awareness didn't bring Ayaan peace, it made everything heavier. The more clearly he saw his life, the harder it became to escape it. Distractions stopped working. Conversations felt shallow. Even moments of happiness started to feel temporary, like they were just covering something deeper that refused to go away. It was as if, for the first time in his life, he was truly awake, and he didn't know what to do with it. One night, unable to sleep, he sat in complete silence, with no phone, no noise, no one around him, just his thoughts. At first, his mind tried to do what it always did, jump from one thought to another, searching for an easy answer, a quick fix, something to hold on to. But this time, he didn't run. He stayed there, facing everything he had been avoiding for years. The pressure, the expectations, the fear of falling behind, the need to prove himself. All of it surfaced at once. And then, something unexpected happened. He realized that most of his decisions were never truly his. They were shaped by fear of being judged, fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough. Even his biggest goals were not born from passion, but from comparison. He wasn't living his life, he was reacting to everyone else's. That truth hit harder than anything else, because it meant that the emptiness he felt wasn't a mistake. It was a signal that he had been moving in a direction that didn't belong to him. For the first time, Ayaan stopped asking, "What should I do next?" and started asking a much deeper question. What do I actually want? If no one is watching? That question didn't have an immediate answer. In fact, it made him feel even more lost. But there was something different about this kind of confusion. It wasn't the confusion of being stuck. It was the confusion of breaking free. He understood that clarity doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from being honest, painfully honest. And honesty comes with a cost. It forces you to let go of the version of yourself that the world accepted and step into the unknown without guarantees, without approval, without certainty. Most people never reach this point, not because it's impossible, but because it's uncomfortable. It's easier to stay distracted, to keep chasing, to keep believing the same illusion. But once you see the truth, going back feels like lying to yourself. That night, Ayaan didn't find answers, but he found something far more important. He found the courage to stop pretending. Courage didn't change Ayaan's life overnight. There was no sudden clarity, no perfect plan, no moment where everything finally made sense. In fact, the days that followed felt even more uncertain than before. But for the first time, that uncertainty didn't scare him the same way. Felt real, honest, like he was finally standing on something that wasn't built on illusion. He stopped forcing himself to follow the same patterns, stopped chasing things just because they looked right from the outside, and slowly began to listen, not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet voice within himself that had been ignored for years. He started noticing small changes. The way he spent his time became more intentional. The things that once impressed him no longer had the same effect. He no longer felt the need to prove himself in every conversation or situation. It wasn't that he had figured life out. It was that he had stopped pretending that he already had. And in that honesty, there was a strange kind of freedom. Not the loud, exciting kind people talk about, but a calm, steady feeling that slowly replaced the constant pressure he once carried. But the truth about life, the one nobody tells you, is not something magical or comforting. It's simple, and that's what makes it difficult to accept. Life doesn't automatically give you meaning. It doesn't guarantee happiness just because you follow the rules. And it certainly doesn't reward you for blindly doing what everyone else is doing. Meaning is something you have to create, consciously, intentionally, and often alone. Ayaan realized that most people spend their entire lives waiting to feel ready, waiting for approval, waiting for the right time. But that moment rarely comes, because life isn't something that reveals itself to you. It's something you shape through the choices you're willing to make, even when those choices are uncomfortable, uncertain, or misunderstood by others. Standing at the edge of everything he once believed, Ayaan finally understood something that changed him completely. The goal of life is not to avoid confusion or pain. It is to live in a way that feels true to you, even when it's difficult. Because in the end, the biggest regret isn't failure. It's living a life that never truly belonged to you. And that is the truth nobody tells you. You can follow every rule, achieve every goal, and still feel empty. Or you can choose your own path, face the uncertainty, and slowly build a life that actually feels real. The choice is always yours, but so are the consequences.